for years, we're so used to seeing the same type of, figures on the runway. And no shade to those women, they're all beautiful, but, a lot of us don't look like that.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Reed. I am the Vice President of Fashion for Bustle. Join me as I investigate what's in store for the future of fashion by highlighting disruptors within the industry who are changing it to be more sustainable and more inclusive. At its core, the modeling profession came about from a very practical need. Designers created clothes, and they needed to show people what their clothes look like on real bodies. As the fashion industry grew and became more competitive, we saw the rise of the need for agencies. The establishment of agencies created bigger and bigger models that then created it girls and what we now know as supermodels. In recent years, there have been conversations about making sure that people who are on the runway are inclusive in both size and race. And so I was really interested to talk to Hanifa about what she created.
My name is Hanifa Mbwemba, and I'm the creative director and designer for Hanifa.
In the middle of coronavirus pandemic, Hanifa dropped a bomb on the fashion industry by creating an entirely digital runway show using exclusively 3D models. When you dropped that, it was like social media went crazy and the fashion industry was like, wait, hold up. So will you tell us a little bit about your virtual models and the figures that you showcase? We'll talk about the design, but I want to talk more about the models and those bodies.
One, I wanted everyone to just focus on the garments, and two, I wanted every single woman who was watching the show to actually see themselves in the clothing. It was really important for me to make sure that it looked exactly like the actual sample, the actual product. And I'm such a perfectionist that I wanted to make sure, like, when people see these garments on the runway, they'll also see the same exact thing when they get it in the mail.
So although it was a blank canvas, I would love for you to explain to us who your girl was. Who were you envisioning designing these pieces for?
So I designed for the woman who is just so confident in herself, and she can walk into a room and not say a single word, and what she has on is literally speaking volumes. I have curves, my friends got curves, we all have these assets, so it was only right for me to also highlight that and portray that in the show.
We think about the way people approach fashion and just inclusivity and working with the digital space. I feel like designers are just trying to figure it out now, and it feels like they're a little bit late to the game. So what challenges do you face while trying to be innovative in a space that hasn't really evolved?
I personally feel like the fashion industry isn't as inclusive, and not just talking about sizes, I feel like it's so hard coming into an industry like the fashion industry as a Black woman, as an emerging designer that nobody knows. It's always felt like a struggle for me, and something that I really, stuck to is just being myself and doing what I wanted to do. I stumbled upon the 3D stuff a few years ago, and when the pandemic happened is when I was really okay, girl, you have the time. It just kind of took me back to that moment, in my career where I was so passionate. A lot of it had to do with just enjoying the process, not really thinking about or caring about what other people thought.
How would you equate what was happening in the world with COVID and it being a pandemic and us being in the house to this creative process, and also the idea to actually have the show be done in 3D?
At the top of the year, I was just kind of in the place where I was just like, man, it's so hard to get noticed in the fashion industry. It's so hard to get an email back. And it just clicked. I was just like, oh my God, everyone is home. Everyone is on their phone, so why not? I was going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to do it digitally or in person, but I think even still, without the pandemic, I don't think it would have had such an impact.
So you created an entire runway show without using a model. How do you think that's going to change the industry as a whole?
I kind of sparked a conversation way before the 3D show about how people felt about technology, because I started posting editorials that I was working on. And it was a great conversation because I saw a lot of other people's concerns, and I had models reply and they're just like, well, there goes my job. It could be an issue with models, but at the same time, I feel like human connection is still needed, because I still think there's nothing like having a real fitting with a real model.
How has the process changed when you're sketching or when you're fitting a model in real life versus doing it digitally?
We actually had to do virtual fittings with the model, and she would begin to walk and her sleeve would fall off, or her gown would completely fall off her body because we didn't stitch it right. When I started doing this, I didn't have the best computer, so sometimes I'll be sitting there for like 6 to 7 hours just working on one thing. And you know, that passion came back and I was just so into it.
Obviously, you really set the tone for designers to wake up and adapt with the times and really make technology work for them and be innovative.
When we were doing it, we weren't even thinking like, oh my gosh, you know, it's gonna be groundbreaking. We were just making something out of nothing because we were like, this is what we have. This is our show. Here you go.
I'm so excited to see what Anifa does with her brand. I feel like she really used technology and the digital space in a time where people needed to be more creative, now more than ever. And I really want to thank her for putting a mirror up to the industry and having us get out of our archaic way of thinking. And I'm excited that it was a woman of color who did this.